weight of self-doubt Maya. Chen stood outside the brick building on Fifth Avenue, her trembling fingers clutching the worn leather strap of her portfolio bag. The afternoon sun painted everything in shades of amber, but she barely noticed the beauty around her. Her mind was too busy cataloging every flaw she saw in her reflection in the glass door. The acne scars that dotted her cheeks like a constellation she never asked for. The uneven skin tone that no amount of makeup seemed to completely hide. The slight asymmetry of her features that photographs always seem to amplify. She had spent the entire morning in front of her bathroom mirror, applying and reapplying foundation, concealer, and powder. Each layer felt like armor, but also like a lie. 23 years old, and she still felt like the awkward teenager who had been told by a modeling agency scout that she had potential if only she could fix her skin. That was 5 years ago, before the treatments, before the medications, before she had finally accepted that her skin was simply part of who she was. The studio occupied the third floor of the converted warehouse. Maya took the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. She had responded to an online advertisement seeking models for a new photography project. The posting had been different from others she had seen. It specifically requested real people, not professional models, those willing to be vulnerable in front of the camera. Something about the words had resonated with her, even though a part of her wondered if she was setting herself up for disappointment. First impressions. The studio door was propped open with a vintage camera case. Maya heard music drifting from inside, something instrumental and soothing. She knocked gently on the doorframe and a voice called out for her to enter. The space was larger than she had expected, with high ceilings and enormous windows that flooded everything with natural light. Photography equipment was scattered throughout in organized chaos. Cameras on tripods, reflectors leaning against walls, and backdrops in various colors hung from ceiling-mounted rails. James Morrison emerged from behind a partition, wiping his hands on a cloth. He was older than she had expected, maybe in his early 40s, with salt and pepper hair that curled slightly at his collar. His eyes were a warm brown, surrounded by laugh lines that suggested he smiled often. He wore a simple black shirt and jeans, nothing pretentious or intimidating. "You must be Maya," he said, extending his hand. His handshake was firm but brief, respectful. "I'm James. Thanks for coming in today." His gaze swept over her face without lingering, professional and assessing but not judgmental. Maya felt some of the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. "Thank you for the opportunity," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She followed him deeper into the studio, noting how comfortable the space felt despite its professional setup. There was a worn leather couch in one corner, a small kitchen area with a coffee maker and walls covered with photographs that took her breath away. These were not the typical glossy fashion shots she had grown accustomed to seeing. Instead, they were intimate portraits of ordinary people. An elderly man with deep wrinkles that told stories of laughter and sorrow. A young mother with stretch marks visible on her exposed belly, holding her newborn. A teenage boy with severe burn scars, his expression defiant and proud. Each photograph celebrated something real, something unfiltered. The confession. James gestured for Maya to sit on a stool positioned in front of a neutral gray backdrop. "Before we start shooting, I always like to talk with my subjects," he explained, pulling up a chair to sit across from her. "Tell me why you responded to my ad. What drew you to this project?" Maya set her portfolio bag down, suddenly uncertain whether she should even show him the heavily edited photos inside. She studied her hands, fingers twisting together nervously. "I've been trying to break into modeling for years," she began slowly, "but I keep getting rejected. They always say the same things. My look is too ethnic. My skin isn't clear enough. I'm not quite what they're looking for." James nodded, listening intently without interrupting. His expression remained neutral, encouraging her to continue. "Your ad was different," Maya went on. "It talked about authenticity and vulnerability. It made me think that maybe someone out there actually wants to see real people instead of impossibly perfect ones." She paused, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "But now that I'm here, I'm wondering if I made a mistake. I'm not sure I'm what you're looking for either." What makes you think that? James asked gently. Maya gestured vaguely at her face. Look at me. I've got acne scars all over my cheeks. My skin is uneven. I've tried everything to fix it, but nothing really works. I spent 2 hours this morning trying to cover it all up, and I know you can still see it. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I'm a little flawed. The words hung in the air between them. Maya felt exposed, vulnerable in a way that had nothing to do with cameras or lighting. She had just confessed her deepest insecurity to a complete stranger, and part of her wanted to grab her bag and run from the studio. The photographer's wisdom. James leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression crossing his features. When he spoke, his voice was warm but matter-of-fact. Imperfections make you interesting. Maya looked up, startled. What? Those scars you're trying so hard to hide? James continued, gesturing toward her face, but not in a way that made her feel exposed. They tell a story. They show that you're human, that you've lived, that you've struggled with something and kept going anyway. That's infinitely more compelling than smooth, airbrushed perfection. He stood and walked over to one of the photographs on the wall, the one of the burn victim. This young man was in a house fire when he was 12. He saved his little sister's life by carrying her out through the flames. Those scars represent courage, sacrifice, and love. When people see this photograph, they don't just see damaged skin. They see a hero. James turned back to Maya. Your skin tells a story too. Maybe it's about the frustration of trying countless treatments. Maybe it's about learning to accept yourself despite society's narrow definition of beauty. Maybe it's about the strength it takes to show up here today, knowing you might be judged. He smiled slightly. Whatever that story is, it's worth telling. And it makes you far more interesting than someone whose biggest challenge was choosing which designer outfit to wear. Maya felt something shift inside her chest. No one had ever framed her appearance this way before. Everyone had always focused on fixing her, improving her, making her more acceptable. But James was suggesting that she was already enough, that her perceived flaws were actually assets. I don't know if I can see myself that way, she admitted quietly. That's okay, James replied. That's what I'm here for. My job isn't just to take pictures. It's to help people see themselves the way I see them, to capture something true and beautiful that they might not recognize in themselves yet. He extended his hand toward her. So, Maya Chen, are you willing to trust me for the next couple of hours? Are you willing to let me show you what I see when I look at you? The session begins. Maya took a deep breath and accepted his hand, letting him help her to her feet. Okay, she said, surprised by the conviction in her own voice. Yes, I'm ready. James smiled broadly, and the warmth of it reached his eyes. Excellent. First things first, though, I need you to go wash your face. Maya froze. What? All that makeup you spent 2 hours applying, James said gently. It needs to come off. I can't photograph the real you if you're hiding behind a mask. He pointed toward a door at the back of the studio. There's a bathroom through there with makeup remover and towels. Take your time. When you're ready, come back out and we'll start. Maya's heart pounded as she walked toward the bathroom. This was the moment of truth. Could she really stand in front of a camera with her bare face exposed? Every instinct screamed at her to keep the makeup on, to maintain at least that small barrier between herself and the scrutiny of the lens. But something about James's words had resonated deeply. Imperfections make you interesting. She repeated the phrase to herself as she stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Her hands shook slightly as she pumped makeup remover onto a cotton pad and began wiping away the carefully applied layers. As her natural skin emerged, Maya forced herself to really look. The acne scars were there, yes, scattered across her cheeks and forehead. Her skin tone was uneven, darker in some areas and lighter in others. But for the first time, she tried to see these features not as flaws but as parts of her story. The skin she was in had carried her through 23 years of life. It had felt sunlight and rain, laughter and tears. It was hers. Breaking through. When Maya emerged from the bathroom, James was adjusting his camera on a tripod. He glanced up and nodded approvingly. Much better. Now I can actually see you. He positioned her in front of the backdrop, explaining the lighting setup as he worked. I'm using natural light from the windows as the main source, he said, with just a reflector to fill in the shadows. Nothing harsh or artificial. I want everything to look soft and genuine. The first few shots were awkward. Maya was hyper-aware of the camera pointed at her, of her exposed face, of every angle and expression. She held her body rigid, her smile forced and unnatural. James could see her discomfort through the lens. "Maya," he said, lowering the camera, "I need you to forget about the camera for a moment." "Can you do that?" She nodded uncertainly. "Tell me about something you love," James prompted. "Something that makes you genuinely happy." Maya thought for a moment. "I love hiking," she said finally. "There's a trail near my apartment that goes up to this overlook. When you reach the top, you can see the entire valley spread out below you. I go there when I need to think or when I need to remember that the world is bigger than whatever I'm worried about." "Perfect," James said. "Close your eyes. Picture yourself standing at that overlook right now. Feel the wind on your face, smell the pine trees, hear the birds singing." Maya closed her eyes and let herself sink into the memory. The tension began to drain from her shoulders. A small, genuine smile curved her lips as she remembered the peace she always felt in that place. "Beautiful," James murmured, and she heard the soft click of the shutter. "Stay there. Stay in that feeling." He continued shooting, his voice a soothing presence guiding her through different emotions and memories. He asked her about her family, her dreams, her favorite childhood memory, the best meal she had ever eaten. With each question, Maya forgot a little more about the camera and a little more about her self-consciousness. The transformation. An hour into the session, something remarkable happened. Maya caught her reflection in a large mirror mounted on the wall, and she barely recognized herself. Her face was animated and alive in a way she had never seen in photographs before. Her eyes sparkled with genuine emotion. Her smile was natural and unforced. And yes, her acne scars were visible, but somehow they did not dominate her appearance the way she had always thought they did. James noticed her staring at herself. "What do you see?" he asked quietly. "I see someone happy," Maya replied, wonder coloring her voice. "I see someone real." "Exactly," James said. He showed her the back of his camera, scrolling through some of the shots he had captured. Maya gasped softly. The photographs were stunning, not in spite of her imperfections, but somehow enhanced by them. The lighting caught the texture of her skin in a way that looked almost luminous. Her expressions were so genuine and unguarded that they radiated emotion. In one shot, she was mid-laugh, her head thrown back slightly, joy written across every feature. In another, she looked contemplative and a little sad, as if pondering something profound. In yet another, she stared directly at the camera with an expression of quiet confidence that took her breath away. "That's not me," she whispered. "That's absolutely you," James corrected gently. "That's who you are when you stop trying to hide." "That's the person I saw the moment you walked through that door." Tears pricked at Maya's eyes, and she blinked them back rapidly. "I've never looked at myself and thought I was beautiful before." James set the camera aside and looked at her seriously. "Beauty isn't about perfection, Maya. It's about authenticity. It's about being fully present and unashamed of who you are. You've been beautiful this entire time. You just needed someone to reflect that back to you." They continued shooting for another hour, but everything felt different now. Maya moved with confidence, suggested poses, laughed freely when something felt silly. She was no longer performing for the camera. She was simply being herself, and James was capturing that truth. Waiting and wondering. 3 days passed before James called Maya with the news that her photographs were ready to view. Those 3 days felt like an eternity. She found herself constantly replaying their conversation in the studio, the way he had looked at her with such certainty when he said, "Imperfections make you interesting." Part of her worried that she had imagined the magic of that afternoon, that the photographs would somehow disappoint when seen with fresh eyes. She arrived at the studio on a Thursday evening, just as the sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon. The golden hour light that filtered through those enormous windows felt almost prophetic, as if the universe itself was conspiring to make this moment significant. James greeted her at the door with that same warm smile, but there was something else in his expression now. Excitement, perhaps, or anticipation. "Before you see them," he said as he led her to his computer workstation, "I want you to know that I've been photographing people for 20 years. I've worked with professional models, celebrities, and ordinary people from all walks of life. These portraits of you are some of the best work I've ever done. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. You're just saying that to make me feel better. I never lie about my work, James replied seriously. Doing so would be a disservice to both the art and the subject. He gestured to the chair in front of his large monitor. Sit, look, judge for yourself. The revelation, the first photograph, appeared on the screen, and Maya forgot how to breathe. It was her, undeniably her, but transformed into something she had never imagined possible. The image showed her in three-quarter profile, natural light illuminating the left side of her face while the right side fell into soft shadow. Her skin, with all its texture and variation, looked almost luminous. The acne scars that she had always seen as flaws caught the light in a way that created depth and dimension. Her expression was peaceful, contemplative, her eyes gazing at something beyond the frame. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. James clicked to the next image. This one showed her laughing, head tilted back, joy radiating from every feature. The scars on her cheeks were clearly visible, but they did nothing to diminish the beauty of that genuine happiness. If anything, they made the emotion feel more earned, more precious. This was not the polished laughter of a commercial. This was real human joy. He continued scrolling through the collection. There were perhaps 30 photographs in total, each one capturing a different facet of her personality. In some she looked strong and confident. In others, vulnerable and thoughtful. There were close-ups that showed every detail of her skin, and wider shots that captured her whole body language. Every single image was breathtaking. Tears began streaming down Maya's face. She did not try to hide them or wipe them away. She simply sat there, crying and staring at these photographs of herself, seeing for the first time what James had seen all along. She was beautiful, not in spite of her imperfections, but with them. Because of them. They were part of her story, and that story was worth telling. "How did you do this?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. James pulled up a chair beside her. "I didn't do anything except capture what was already there." "You did the real work, Maya. You trusted me enough to let your guard down. You stopped hiding and started being present. That's what you're seeing in these photographs. That's you, authentic and unafraid." An unexpected proposal. They sat together in comfortable silence for several minutes, Maya scrolling back through the images, absorbing each one more deeply. Finally, James cleared his throat, and she could hear nervousness in the sound. "I have a proposal for you," he said, "and I want you to know that you're under absolutely no obligation to accept. But I've been working on a project for the past year, a photography exhibition called Unfiltered. The concept is to celebrate real beauty in all its forms, to challenge the narrow, unrealistic standards that society has imposed on us." Maya turned to look at him, curiosity replacing some of her emotion. "I've been photographing people who society might consider imperfect," James continued. "People with scars, disabilities, unusual features, bodies that don't conform to magazine standards. The goal is to show that beauty exists everywhere, in every form, if we're willing to look past our preconceived notions." He paused, meeting her eyes directly. "I would like your photographs to be part of this exhibition. I think your story, your journey from hiding to embracing your authentic self, could inspire others who struggle with similar insecurities." Maya's breath caught. "You want to display these publicly?" "I do," James confirmed, "but only if you're comfortable with it. This is your image, your story. You have complete control over whether and how it's shared." The old Maya, the one who had spent 2 hours covering her face with makeup before their shoot, would have refused immediately. The thought of her bare face, her visible scars, being displayed for strangers to see would have been horrifying. But something had shifted during that photography session, and it continued shifting as she looked at these beautiful images of herself. "Can I think about it?" she asked finally. "Of course," James replied. "Take all the time you need. The exhibition isn't scheduled until next month, so there's no rush." He reached over and gently squeezed her hand. "Whatever you decide, Maya, thank you for trusting me with this. Working with you has reminded me why I fell in love with photography in the first place." A growing connection. Maya did not leave the studio right away. James offered her tea, and they ended up talking for hours. He told her about his journey as a photographer, how he had started out doing commercial work that he found creatively unfulfilling, how he had gradually shifted toward more personal, meaningful projects. how the unfiltered exhibition had become his passion project, a way to use his art to challenge harmful beauty standards. Maya shared her own story more fully. She talked about the years of failed treatments and disappointed hopes, about the cruel comments from classmates and even family members, about the modeling agency scout who had told her she had potential if only she could fix her skin, about how that single comment had shaped her self-image for years. "You know what the worst part was?" Maya said at one point. "It was not the acne itself, but the way people made me feel like I needed to apologize for it. Like my appearance was somehow offensive or disrespectful to others. As if I owed the world flawless skin." James nodded, understanding. "That's the insidious nature of beauty standards. They're framed as objective truth when they're really just arbitrary social constructs. And they're designed to make people feel inadequate so they'll keep buying products and treatments to fix themselves. I spent so much money," Maya admitted with a rueful laugh. "Dermatologists, medications, special diets, expensive skincare. I probably could have bought a car with what I've spent trying to have perfect skin." "And now?" James asked gently. Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Now I'm starting to wonder if perfect skin was ever really the goal. Maybe what I actually wanted was to feel acceptable, to feel worthy of being seen and loved." She looked down at her hands. "These photographs you took, they make me feel that way. Like I'm worthy exactly as I am." The conversation drifted to other topics, lighter ones. They discovered shared interests in hiking, classic literature, and terrible horror movies. James made Maya laugh with stories about disastrous photo shoots and difficult clients. Maya surprised herself with how comfortable she felt in his presence, how easy it was to talk to him. When she finally left the studio, well past midnight, she carried a USB drive containing her photographs and something else, something harder to define. A sense of possibility, perhaps. A feeling that her life might be opening up into something new and unexpected. The decision over the next week, Maya looked at her photographs every day. She showed them to her roommate, who cried and declared them the most beautiful images she had ever seen. She showed them to her mother, who hugged her tightly and apologized for all the times she had suggested Maya try a new treatment or cover-up technique. She even posted one on her private social media account, and the outpouring of support from friends overwhelmed her. But it was not the external validation that ultimately made her decision. It was something internal, a quiet voice that had been growing stronger since that day in James's studio. The voice that said she deserved to take up space in the world, that her story mattered, that her face, exactly as it was worth seeing. She called James on a Tuesday morning. "I want to do it," she said as soon as he answered. "I want to be part of the exhibition." She could hear the smile in his voice. "I'm so glad. I promise you won't regret this." They met several more times over the next few weeks to plan the exhibition. James showed her the other photographs that would be included, and Maya was moved to tears by many of them. There was a war veteran with prosthetic limbs posed like a Greek statue, an elderly woman with vitiligo whose skin looked like art, a young man with Down syndrome whose smile radiated pure joy. Each image celebrated humanity in its truest, most unfiltered form. During these meetings, Maya found herself looking forward to seeing James almost as much as she looked forward to the work itself. There was an ease between them that felt rare and precious. He made her laugh. He listened when she talked. He treated her like her opinion mattered, like she was an equal collaborator rather than just a subject. One evening, as they were reviewing the layout of the exhibition, James suddenly set down his notes and looked at her seriously. "Maya, I need to say something, and I hope it doesn't make things awkward between us." Her heart rate picked up slightly. "Okay, I'm falling for you," he said simply. "I know that probably breaks about a dozen professional boundaries. You were my subject, and I should have maintained emotional distance. But the truth is, over these past weeks, I've come to care about you as more than just someone I photographed. You're brilliant and brave and so much stronger than you give yourself credit for." He took a breath. "I understand if you don't feel the same way. I understand if this changes things, but I couldn't let the exhibition happen without being honest with you." Maya stared at him, processing his words. Part of her was not surprised. There had been moments, looks that lingered a bit too long, accidental touches that sent electricity through her skin, conversations that felt intimate and significant. but hearing him say it out loud made it real and terrifying and wonderful all at once. "I care about you too," she admitted quietly. "I've been trying not to, because this whole situation seemed complicated enough without adding feelings into the mix. But yes, James, I care about you, more than I probably should." The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise. He reached across the table and took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "So what do we do about it?" Maya laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "I guess we figure it out together. The exhibition." The night of the unfiltered exhibition opening arrived with perfect weather. The gallery was packed with people, a diverse crowd that included art collectors, journalists, fellow photographers, and ordinary citizens who had heard about the project through social media. The photographs lined the walls, each one large format and beautifully displayed, each one telling a story of human authenticity. Maya stood in front of her portrait series, watching people's reactions. Some stared in silence, clearly moved. Others read the accompanying text that explained her journey from hiding behind makeup to embracing her authentic appearance. Several young women approached her directly, thanking her for being brave enough to put herself on display. "I have acne too," one teenager said, tears in her eyes. "Seeing your photos makes me feel like maybe I don't have to hate myself for it." Maya hugged her, and something inside her chest expanded. This was why she had agreed to the exhibition. Not for fame or recognition, but for the possibility that her vulnerability might help someone else feel less alone. When it came time for speeches, James introduced the project and its mission. Then unexpectedly, he called Maya up to the microphone. She had not prepared anything, but as she looked out at the sea of faces, the words came naturally. "For most of my life, I believed that my worth was tied to my appearance," she began. "I believed that because I had acne scars, I was somehow less deserving of love, success, and happiness. I spent years and thousands of dollars trying to fix myself, trying to become acceptable by society's narrow standards." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Then I met James, and he taught me something revolutionary. He taught me that imperfections make us interesting, that our flaws and struggles and scars are not things to hide, but stories to tell, that authenticity is more valuable than perfection." Maya felt James's presence beside her, his hand finding hers, steadying her. She squeezed back, drawing strength from his support. "These photographs represent more than just my face," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "They represent a choice, the choice to stop apologizing for existing, the choice to believe that I am enough exactly as I am, the choice to be seen, truly seen, without masks or filters or carefully crafted illusions." She looked directly at the young woman who had thanked her earlier. "If you're someone who struggles with feeling imperfect, I want you to know something. Your imperfections are not your enemy. They are proof that you are human, that you are real, that you have lived and struggled and survived. They make you interesting. They make you beautiful. They make you you." The applause that followed was thunderous, but Maya barely heard it. She was looking at James, who gazed at her with such pride and love that it took her breath away. He wrapped his arm around her waist, and she leaned into him, feeling truly at home for the first time in her life. The future unfiltered weeks turned into months, and the unfiltered exhibition became a sensation. It traveled to galleries in other cities. Articles were written about it in major publications. Most importantly, it sparked conversations about beauty standards, self-acceptance, and the power of authentic representation. Maya and James's relationship deepened naturally, without rush or pressure. They took long hikes together, where Maya showed him her favorite overlook. They cooked meals in his apartment while debating the merits of various horror movie tropes. They collaborated on new photography projects, with Maya gradually transitioning from subject to co-creator. One Saturday morning, 6 months after that first studio session, they sat together on James's couch planning their next exhibition. Maya was scrolling through photographs on her laptop when she came across one of the original shots from her first session. The one where she was mid-laugh, joy radiating from every feature, scars clearly visible and somehow beautiful. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "I used to look at this photograph and see only my imperfections. Now when I look at it, I see the moment I started believing I was enough." James kissed her temple gently. "You were always enough, love. You just needed someone to help you see it." Maya turned to face him fully, cupping his cheek with her hand. "Thank you for that, for seeing me, for helping me see myself. "Thank you for trusting me," he replied. "For being brave enough to take off the mask. For teaching me that the most powerful photographs are the ones that capture truth rather than perfection." They kissed then, slow and sweet, surrounded by photographs of real people living authentic lives. Outside the windows, the city hummed with activity. Inside, two people who had found each other through vulnerability and art held each other close, imperfect and whole and completely, beautifully real.